I stood alone in my wedding dress, staring at empty pews where my family should have been sitting. My entire family had skipped my ceremony to attend my daughter-in-law's birthday party instead. Just before walking down the aisle, my son texted, "Don't get married. Get out of there. We need to talk urgently." What I discovered next proved that sometimes the people who claim to protect you know exactly what they're protecting you from. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me take you back to how I, Margaret Wilson, a 64-year-old widow, ended up abandoned at the altar on what should have been the happiest day of my second chance at love. It started 18 months ago when I met Alexander Bennett at the Riverside Hospital charity auction. I'd been alone for 15 years since my husband James passed, and honestly, I'd made peace with that quiet life. My son Ryan, his wife Jennifer, and my grandkids Sarah and Michael filled the lonely spaces well enough. I had my volunteer work at the children's ward, my book club, my routine. Safe, predictable, comfortable. Then Alex walked into that hotel ballroom like he owned not just the room, but the entire world. At 56, he was 8 years younger than me, but when those piercing blue eyes met mine across the crowded room, age became irrelevant. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of confident smile that suggested life had been very generous to him. "You're Margaret Wilson," he said, appearing at my elbow during the silent auction. "The Margaret Wilson who reads to the children upstairs." "How did you know that?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "I make it my business to know remarkable women," he replied smoothly. "I'm Alexander Bennett. Would you do me the honor of bidding on that weekend in Napa with me? I promise to make it worth your while if we win." We didn't win the Napa trip, but we did end up talking until the hotel bar closed at 2 a.m. Alex was charming, worldly, genuinely interested in everything I said. A successful investment consultant, he told me, recently retired and dividing his time between properties in Chicago and Naples. "I've been widowed for 8 years, he confided over our third glass of wine. "Lost my Catherine to breast cancer. Some days I think I'll never stop missing her." The vulnerability in his voice, the way his hand trembled slightly when he mentioned his late wife, it touched something deep in my chest that had been dormant for far too long. Here was a man who understood loss, who knew what it meant to rebuild a life from the ashes of everything you'd planned. "At our age," he said, walking me to my car in the empty parking garage, "we don't have time for games, do we? We know what real connection feels like." When he kissed my hand goodbye, old-fashioned and romantic, I felt something I hadn't experienced since I was 25. Hope, dangerous, intoxicating hope that maybe life wasn't finished, surprising me. Alex didn't play hard to get. He called the next morning before I'd even finished my coffee, that warm, cultured voice making my kitchen feel suddenly too small and ordinary. "I can't stop thinking about our conversation last night," he said. "Would you let me take you to dinner tomorrow? Somewhere we can actually hear each other talk?" That dinner turned into 3 hours at Giovanni's, the kind of upscale Italian place I'd driven past for years but never imagined actually entering. Alex ordered wine like he understood vineyards personally, spoke to the waiter in what sounded like fluent Italian, and somehow made me feel like the most fascinating woman in the restaurant. "Tell me about your nursing career," he said, leaning forward with genuine interest. 30 years in pediatrics must have some incredible stories. Most men my age, when they asked about my work, their eyes glazed over within minutes. Alex hung on every word, asked thoughtful questions, seemed genuinely moved when I told him about the children I'd helped through their darkest moments. "You have a gift," he said, reaching across the table to cover my hand with his. "The gift of healing. That's rare, Margaret. That's precious." The way he said my name, like it was something valuable he was handling carefully, made my heart skip in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Our second date was a symphony performance. Box seats that must have cost more than my monthly grocery budget, champagne at intermission, Alex looking devastatingly handsome in his charcoal suit. "I love watching you experience beautiful things," he said during the second act. "You light up. It's extraordinary." By our third date, I was thoroughly enchanted. Alex had this way of making everything feel like an adventure designed specifically for me. He picked me up in different cars each time, a sleek black Mercedes, a vintage Jaguar, a BMW convertible that made me feel 25 again. "I collect them," he explained with boyish pride. Retirement hobby. Life's too short to drive boring cars. He was right about that. Life was too short for many things I'd been accepting as normal. Like eating dinner alone every night. Like declining invitations because I didn't want to be the only single person there. Like pretending I didn't miss being touched, being wanted, being someone's first priority instead of their afterthought. I want to spoil you, Alex said, when I protested that his gestures were too extravagant. Weekend trips to his lake house, private wine tastings, flowers delivered for no reason except that he'd seen them and thought of me. When was the last time someone put you first, Margaret? When did someone last make you feel special? The answer was humbling. Even with James, bless his practical heart. I'd been the caretaker, the one ensuring everyone else's needs were met before considering my own. With Alex, I became the center of attention in ways that felt both thrilling and slightly overwhelming. For the first time in 15 years, I felt like a desirable woman instead of just a dependable widow. I should have paid attention to the first signs of my family's discomfort, but I was too busy floating on clouds to notice the storm gathering below. The first time Ryan met Alex was at Sarah's school play in October. I'd been nervous about the introduction, but Alex was perfection itself, arriving with flowers for Sarah and asking Ryan intelligent questions about his accounting practice. Investment consulting must be lucrative, Ryan said afterward, and I caught that careful tone he used when evaluating a client's financial statements. What firm was he with again? He's retired, I answered, basking in my son's impressed expression. Sold his own company and now manages his portfolio privately. Jennifer was immediately charmed by Alex's old-world manners and obvious wealth. He's so distinguished, she whispered, while Alex taught Michael how to throw a proper spiral in the backyard. Those clothes alone probably cost more than Ryan's entire wardrobe. I glowed under her approval, finally feeling like I had something enviable instead of just being the reliable grandmother who babysat on weekends. Alex insisted on taking the whole family to dinner at the country club, where he was supposedly a member. I want to get to know the people Margaret loves most, he said, though I noticed he paid the considerable bill in cash rather than signing for it. Cash flow preference, he explained smoothly when Ryan's eyebrow raised. I like to keep some liquidity available. That dinner should have been perfect. Alex was charming, attentive to the children, respectful to Ryan and Jennifer. But I caught my son studying Alex with increasing intensity as the evening progressed, particularly when Alex casually mentioned his various properties and investment successes. Real estate in Naples is exploding, Alex said. I picked up my place there for a song 5 years ago. Worth triple now. Which area of Naples? Ryan asked casually. Pelican Bay, Alex replied without hesitation. Waterfront condo. The sunsets are spectacular. But I saw something flicker across Ryan's face. Some subtle recognition that made my stomach tighten with undefined worry. On the drive home, Ryan was unusually quiet. Everything okay? I asked. He seems nice, Ryan said carefully. Very confident. There was something in his tone I couldn't quite identify, something that made me defensive in ways I didn't fully understand. He's successful, Ryan. Some people are comfortable with their accomplishments. But even as I said it, I wondered why I felt the need to defend Alex at all. Why couldn't I just enjoy my son's acceptance of the man who was making me happier than I'd been in years? That night, lying alone in my bed, I found myself replaying the evening, searching for whatever had put that expression on Ryan's face. But then Alex called to say goodnight, his voice warm and intimate in the darkness, and all my doubts melted away like ice in sunshine. By Thanksgiving, Alex had seamlessly integrated himself into our family traditions, though the seams were starting to show if you knew where to look. He arrived at Ryan and Jennifer's house with expensive wine and thoughtful gifts, playing the perfect gentleman who'd captured grandmother's heart. But I began noticing small things. The way Ryan's jaw tightened when Alex mentioned his latest investment success. How Jennifer's smile became more forced each time Alex casually referenced his wealth. He's very generous with details about his finances, Jennifer commented while we prepared dessert. Most wealthy people I know are more private about money. She was right, but I pushed away the observation. Maybe Alex was just proud of his success, excited to share his good fortune with people he was growing to love. Christmas Eve at my house should have been magical. Alex insisted on providing the champagne, an expensive vintage that made Ryan whistle appreciatively despite his growing reservations. "This must have cost more than our mortgage payment," he said, studying the label. "Special occasion," Alex replied smoothly. "Your mother deserves the finest things." But during gift exchange, I noticed the family's reactions becoming more strained. Alex's presents were lavish, almost aggressively expensive. A designer handbag for Jennifer that probably cost more than she spent on clothes in a year. Professional golf equipment for Ryan that seemed chosen more for price than thoughtfulness. For the children, electronics so advanced they seemed overwhelmed rather than thrilled. "It's too much," I whispered to Alex in the kitchen. "I don't think they're comfortable with such expensive gifts." "Nonsense," he replied, pulling me close. "I want to share my success with the people you love. Money is meant to be enjoyed, Margaret." New Year's Eve was when the first real crack appeared. Alex had planned an elegant evening at his supposed penthouse downtown. But when we arrived, something felt off. The doorman seemed confused by our presence, and Alex had to show identification and make several phone calls before we were allowed up. "New security protocols," he explained, but I caught him sweating slightly despite the winter cold. The penthouse was stunning, but it felt strangely impersonal, like a luxury hotel suite rather than someone's home. No family photos, no personal touches, nothing that suggested Alex actually lived there. "How long have you owned this place?" I asked, running my fingers along the spotless marble countertop. "A few years," he answered vaguely. "I'm thinking of selling it actually. Too much space for one person." That night, as fireworks exploded over the lake, Alex dropped to one knee with a ring that caught the colorful light like captured starfire. "Marry me, Margaret," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Let's stop being alone. Let's build something beautiful together." The ring was magnificent, an Art Deco design with a center diamond that took my breath away. "Say yes to happiness," he whispered, slipping the ring onto my trembling finger. "Say yes to us." And I did. God help me. I said yes to the fairy tale. Yes to feeling young and chosen and precious again. I said yes to a man who made me feel like the heroine of my own love story. I should have been saying yes to the private investigator my son was already planning to hire. The engagement announcement sent shockwaves through my small world, though not all of them were celebratory. Ryan's congratulations felt forced, his smile tight around the edges. Jennifer hugged me enthusiastically, but I caught her exchanging meaningful looks with her husband when she thought I wasn't watching. "6 months is awfully fast," my sister Beth said during our weekly phone call. "You barely know this man, Margaret." "I'm 64 years old," I replied, probably more sharply than necessary. "I think I can judge character after all these years." But even as I said it, I wondered why everyone seemed determined to find problems with my happiness. Alex suggested a spring wedding, nothing too elaborate, just close family and friends at St. Margaret's Chapel where James and I had been married. "I want to honor your history while we create our future," he said, and I melted at his thoughtfulness. He insisted on handling most arrangements himself, claiming he wanted to surprise me, to remove all stress so I could simply enjoy being a bride again. "Let me take care of everything," he said, kissing my forehead tenderly. "You've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. It's time someone took care of you." How romantic it seemed. How convenient it was that I never spoke directly to caterers, florists, or vendors. We spent February looking at houses since Alex insisted we needed a fresh start somewhere new. "Your place has too many memories of James," he said gently. "Let's find something that's completely ours." The homes he showed me were magnificent, far beyond anything my teacher's pension could afford. But Alex waved away my concerns about cost. "I've been conservative with investments my whole life," he explained as we toured a stunning Tudor revival with a price tag that made me dizzy. "What's the point of financial security if we don't use it to create the life we want?" He was right, of course. What was the point of his success if it just sat in accounts earning interest? But Ryan's discomfort was becoming impossible to ignore. "Mom, have you seen any financial statements? Bank records? Investment portfolios?" He cornered me after Sunday dinner, his CPA training clearly in overdrive. "You're about to combine assets with someone you've known less than a year." "Ryan, that's terribly unromantic," I scolded. Though his questions planted seeds of doubt I immediately tried to uproot. Alex is a private person about business matters. Successful people often are. Besides, I'd seen evidence of his wealth everywhere. The cars, the clothes, the effortless way he spent money. You couldn't fake that kind of consistent affluence, could you? The rehearsal dinner should have been perfect. Alex had arranged everything at the Riverside Country Club, the same venue where we'd met. But I noticed the staff seemed confused by some of our requests, and Alex spent considerable time on the phone sorting out details that should have been confirmed weeks ago. "Everything all right?" I asked when he returned from his third phone call, looking slightly frazzled. "Perfect," he assured me, his charming smile snapping back into place. "Just some last-minute adjustments. You know how these places can be." I didn't, actually, but I trusted him to handle whatever complications had arisen. That night he kissed me goodnight at my door like a gentleman. "Tomorrow, Mrs. Bennet," he said, and my heart fluttered like a schoolgirl's. Tomorrow, I would walk down the aisle to marry a man who made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. If only I'd known I was actually walking toward the biggest con of my life. The morning of my wedding dawned gray and drizzly, not the sunny April day I'd hoped for, but I refused to see it as an omen. "Rain on your wedding day is good luck," Jennifer assured me as she helped with my hair, though her enthusiasm seemed forced. The cream silk dress Alex had insisted on buying made me feel elegant rather than ridiculous, and the pearl necklace James had given me on our 20th anniversary provided the perfect touch of sentiment. "You look beautiful, Mom," Ryan said when he arrived to escort me to the church, but his eyes remained troubled. He'd been increasingly distant as the wedding approached, their family dinners becoming tense affairs where conversation felt stilted and careful. "It's not too late to postpone," he said quietly as we drove toward St. Margaret's. "If you're having any doubts—" "I'm not having doubts," I replied firmly, though something in his tone made my stomach flutter with undefined anxiety. "I'm marrying a wonderful man who loves me. Try to look happy about it." But even as I said the words, I couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was keeping secrets from me, walking on eggshells around topics they couldn't quite bring themselves to discuss. At the church, I retreated to the small bridal room to wait for my cue. Through the crack in the door, I could see the sanctuary filling with guests. Alex looked devastatingly handsome at the altar in his charcoal gray suit. Every inch the distinguished gentleman I'd fallen in love with. Everything was proceeding exactly as we'd planned. Except it wasn't. As the minutes ticked by, I began to notice something was wrong. The pews that should have been filled with my family remained conspicuously empty. Ryan's reserved seats, Jennifer's spot, the children's places marked with special ribbons, all vacant. "Where is everyone?" I asked the wedding coordinator, my voice beginning to shake. She checked her watch nervously. "I'm sure they're just running late. Traffic can be unpredictable." But it was past the scheduled start time, and there was no sign of my family anywhere. I tried calling Ryan's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Jennifer's too. Even the children's phones were turned off. 20 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, the horrible truth became clear. My family wasn't late. They weren't coming at all. I stood alone in my wedding dress, staring at empty pews where the people I loved most should have been sitting. The few guests present were Alex's friends and associates, people I barely knew, their faces turning sympathetic as they realized what was happening. That's when my phone buzzed with a text message from Ryan. "Don't get married. Get out of there. We need to talk urgently. Please, Mom. Trust me on this. Leave now." My hands started shaking as I stared at those words. This wasn't pre-wedding jitters or family drama. This was something desperate, something urgent enough to make my family abandon my wedding and my son send a message that could destroy everything I thought I wanted. Looking back, that was the moment my fairy tale finally cracked open to reveal the nightmare hiding underneath. Not when I learned the truth about Alex, not when I discovered how thoroughly he'd deceived me, but when I realized the people who loved me most had been trying to save me from something I was too blind to see. And they'd been willing to break my heart to protect me from having it completely destroyed. I found my entire family gathered in Ryan's living room like they were holding some kind of intervention. Jennifer looked guilty, the kids confused, and Ryan like he hadn't slept in days. "Well," I said, still in my wedding dress, "this better be good. You just destroyed my wedding day to attend Jennifer's birthday party that nobody mentioned was happening." Ryan stood up, his face pale. "Mom, sit down, please." "I'll stand, thank you. I've been standing alone at an altar for the past hour." The sarcasm in my voice could have cut glass. But honestly, what did they expect? Sweet, understanding Margaret? That woman just got left at the altar by her own family. "We didn't go to Jennifer's party," Ryan said quietly. "There was no party, Mom. We made that up." I stared at him, my brain struggling to process his words. "You made it up? You lied to avoid my wedding?" Jennifer stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Margaret, we've been investigating Alex for 3 months. We hired a private investigator." The words hit me like a physical slap. "You did what?" "We had to," Ryan said desperately. Something didn't add up. The stories, the money, the way he avoided giving concrete details about anything. So I called my friend Pete, who works in financial fraud investigation. I sank into the nearest chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. "You investigated my fiancé behind my back." "We investigated a man who was asking too many questions about your finances," Ryan corrected. "A man who somehow knew exactly how much Dad's life insurance policy was worth before you ever told him." That stopped me cold. I'd mentioned James's life insurance exactly once, in passing, months ago. How would Alex know the specific amount unless— "We have files, Mom," Jennifer said gently. "Photographs, financial records, police reports. Alex Bennett isn't who he says he is." Ryan disappeared into his study and returned with a thick manila folder. "His real name is Anthony Brewster. He's 56, just like he told you. But he's not a widower. He's never been married. And he's not wealthy. He's a professional romance scammer who targets widowed women with substantial assets." My hands shook as I opened the folder. The first document was a police report from Tampa, Florida. A photograph of Alex, but the name underneath read, "Anthony Brewster. Charges: fraud, elder abuse, theft by deception." The victim was a 68-year-old widow named Dorothy Chen who'd lost her entire life savings to this man. "There are 7 other women," Ryan continued, his voice gentle but relentless. "All widows between 60 and 75. All had significant assets. All lost everything to the same man using different names and slightly different stories." I stared at more photographs, more police reports, more broken lives. Sarah Martinez in Phoenix, Linda Thompson in Denver, Nancy Williams in Seattle. "The lake house in Wisconsin?" I whispered. "Rented under a fake name for the weekends he took you there. The penthouse? Same thing. Short-term rental. The cars? Leased under various aliases with forged credit applications." Jennifer's voice was breaking. "Margaret, he's been planning this for months. Learning about you, your routines, your finances." I thought about all those casual questions Alex had asked. About James's pension, my retirement accounts, the house. Questions that had seemed like normal getting-to-know-you conversation, but now felt like an interrogation disguised as pillow talk. "The ring," I said, looking down at the beautiful diamond still sparkling on my finger. "This has to be worth thousands." Ryan shook his head sadly. "Cubic zirconia. Very convincing, but worthless. Pete had it appraised yesterday while you were at the rehearsal dinner. Everything I thought I knew was crumbling around me like sandcastles at high tide. But instead of devastation, I felt something else rising in my chest. Rage. Pure, clean, magnificent rage. "So let me get this straight," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "While I was planning my dream wedding, you were building a criminal case against my fiancé?" Ryan had the grace to look ashamed. "We wanted to be sure before we said anything. We knew how happy he made you. How considerate of you to let me live in a fool's paradise right up until the altar." I pulled off the fake ring and threw it across the room where it bounced off the wall with a satisfying crack. What exactly was the plan here? Let me marry a con artist and figure it out on the honeymoon." Jennifer grabbed my hands. "We tried to hint, to make you see the inconsistencies. But you were so happy, and he was so convincing. We needed proof before we could ask you to give him up." "You needed proof," I repeated slowly. "Did it occur to any of you that I might have preferred knowing the truth 3 months ago?" "We were protecting you," Ryan said defensively. "Protecting me?" I stood up, my voice rising. "You were protecting yourselves from having to deal with a heartbroken mother. Well, congratulations. I'm heartbroken anyway, but now I also feel like an idiot. The private investigator's report made for fascinating reading if you enjoyed stories about master manipulators. Anthony Brewster had been running romance scams for 8 years, perfecting his technique with each victim. He studied obituaries to identify recent widows, researched their backgrounds through social media and public records, then engineered chance meetings at charity events or social gatherings. His method was always the same: charm them, isolate them from family who might ask uncomfortable questions, create urgency around marriage to access their assets quickly. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to a timeline in the report. "He usually proposes within 6 months and pushes for a wedding within a year." I'd gotten the 6-month proposal right on schedule. How flattering to be so predictable. What about the other women? What happened to them? The answer was devastating. Dorothy Chen lost her house, her life savings, everything. She was now living in a nursing home on Medicaid. Sarah Martinez attempted suicide after discovering the truth. Linda Thompson had a heart attack from the stress and died 6 months later. "He doesn't just steal money," the investigator had noted. "He destroys lives. These women don't just lose their savings, they lose their ability to trust, their sense of worth, their will to live." Reading about those broken women, I felt my rage crystallize into something harder and more focused. Anthony Brewster had destroyed enough lives. He wasn't going to destroy mine. "Where is he now?" I asked Ryan. "Still at the church?" "We don't know. When the ceremony didn't start, he made some phone calls and left. Pete's been watching his hotel, but he hasn't returned." Smart man. He probably sensed the trap closing and ran like the coward he was. "Mom," Ryan said carefully, "there's something else. We found evidence that he was planning to clean out your accounts during the honeymoon. He'd already set up the paperwork to transfer everything to offshore accounts." The honeymoon. Our romantic week in Tuscany that would have left me penniless and alone in a foreign country when the truth finally came out. But Anthony Brewster had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed my family was as gullible as I was. He'd counted on them being charmed by his sophisticated facade, never suspecting that an accountant's suspicious nature and a daughter-in-law's protective instincts would be his downfall. Now the question was, what was I going to do about it? 3 days later, I was sitting in Detective Maria Santos's office downtown, no longer the blushing bride, but a woman with a mission. "Mrs. Wilson, I have to ask, did you give him access to any of your accounts? Credit cards, banking information, anything?" I shook my head. "He tried to get me to add him to my checking account before the wedding, said it would be easier for planning the honeymoon, but something in Ryan's behavior made me hesitate. Thank God for small favors and suspicious sons." "We've been tracking Anthony Brewster for 2 years, Detective Santos explained, spreading files across her desk. "The problem is proving the crimes. These women were willing participants in relationships. They gave him money voluntarily. It becomes he said she said about intent." I studied the photos of Brewster's other victims. Dorothy Chen, whose sad eyes haunted me. Sarah Martinez, who looked so much like me it was unsettling. What happened when they tried to get their money back? Most were too embarrassed to report it initially. By the time they did, the money was gone, moved through multiple accounts, and ultimately offshore. Brewster is very good at what he does. "Was," I corrected. "He was good at what he did. Now he's made the mistake of targeting someone whose family doesn't give up easily." Detective Santos smiled grimly. "What exactly are you proposing, Mrs. Wilson?" "I'm proposing we catch him in the act. He doesn't know I know the truth. As far as he's concerned, my family disrupted our wedding for reasons he probably thinks he can overcome." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would contact Alex, play the heartbroken bride who'd been abandoned by her cruel family. I'd suggest we elope immediately, just the two of us, romantic and spontaneous. During the process of arranging our quickie wedding, he'd inevitably ask for access to my accounts to handle the details. "It's dangerous," Detective Santos warned. "If he suspects you know, he could become violent. We've had reports of threats against women who tried to expose him." "Then you better make sure you're watching closely," I replied, "because I'm not letting this man destroy one more life." Ryan was horrified when I explained the plan. "Mom, absolutely not. It's too risky. Ryan, I'm 64 years old. I've survived raising a stubborn son, 30 years of pediatric nursing, and being widowed at 49. I think I can handle one con artist. Besides, I had advantages Anthony Brewster couldn't anticipate. I wasn't the naive widow he thought he was dealing with anymore. I was a woman who'd spent 3 days studying his methods, understanding his psychology, planning his downfall. He'd taught me valuable lessons about deception and manipulation. Time to show him what an excellent student I was. Jennifer helped me craft the perfect text message to send to Alex. Heartbroken, but hopeful. Hurt, but still in love. Desperate to salvage our relationship despite my family's interference. "You should have been an actress," she said, reading my draft. "This is perfect. You sound exactly like his ideal victim." The response came within an hour. Alex was devastated by our wedding's disruption. So sorry I'd been hurt by my family's cruelty, eager to prove our love could overcome any obstacle. He suggested we meet for dinner to discuss our future. "Just the two of us, darling. We don't need anyone else's approval to be happy." Oh, Anthony, I thought, deleting his real name from my phone and saving him as Target. "You have no idea what kind of happiness I'm about to give you." The restaurant Alex chose for our reunion dinner was perfect for surveillance, Detective Santos assured me through the tiny microphone hidden in my pearl earrings. "We have eyes on all the exits," she said. "If anything feels wrong, just touch your necklace and we'll move in." I felt calmer than I had in days. Finally, I was doing something instead of being acted upon. Alex looked genuinely distraught when I arrived, his handsome face etched with concern and what appeared to be real grief. "Margaret, darling, I'm so sorry. I can't believe your family would do something so cruel." His performance was flawless, Oscar-worthy in its sincerity. If I hadn't seen the police reports, I might have fallen for it all over again. "I don't understand why they reacted that way," I said, letting my voice tremble slightly. "Ryan kept saying something about you being too good to be true, but I told him love doesn't follow logical rules." Alex reached across the table to take my hand, his thumb stroking my knuckles in that familiar, comforting way. "Families can be overprotective," he said gently. "Perhaps they're afraid of losing you, afraid that marriage will change your relationship with them." He paused, his blue eyes searching my face. "Margaret, I need you to know that I'll never try to come between you and your children. Family is sacred." The irony was breathtaking. This man who made his living destroying families was lecturing me about their sanctity. "What do we do now?" I asked, playing the lost, confused woman he expected. "How do we move forward when my own son won't support our marriage?" Alex squeezed my hand tighter. "We prove them wrong. We show them that real love conquers all obstacles." He paused, as if the idea was just occurring to him. "What if we eloped? Just the two of us, somewhere romantic. Paris, maybe, or Rome. We could be married by the weekend." There it was. The hook, dangled with perfect timing and flawless delivery. "Elope?" I breathed, as if the idea was both thrilling and terrifying. "But the planning, the arrangements, the cost." "Let me handle everything," Alex said quickly. "I can arrange it all within days. A small ceremony, just us, in the most beautiful setting you can imagine." "But Alex, I couldn't let you pay for everything. It wouldn't be right." I played the role perfectly, the woman torn between desire and propriety. "We should share the expenses, make it truly ours together." His eyes lit up with anticipation, masked as romantic enthusiasm. "If you insist, darling. Perhaps you could handle the travel arrangements while I manage the ceremony details." Travel arrangements meant flight bookings, hotel reservations, expenses that would require access to my credit cards and bank accounts. "I've never planned anything like this before," I said helplessly. "What if I make mistakes? What if I don't have enough in my checking account to cover everything?" "Don't worry about that," Alex said smoothly. "I could help you transfer some funds from your other accounts to make sure you have plenty available. We'll need to move quickly to get the best arrangements." And there it was. The moment of truth, the trap springing shut, the con artist revealing his true purpose. But as I looked into those lying blue eyes, I realized something that made my blood run cold. I wasn't the only one setting a trap tonight. The way Alex was watching me, the slightly too careful way he was speaking, the subtle tension in his shoulders. He knew. Somehow, some way, Anthony Brewster had figured out that I knew exactly who he was. The question was, which one of us was better at this dangerous game we were playing? "You know," Alex said, his voice dropping its warm, loving tone like a mask being removed, "I have to admire your family's thoroughness. That private investigator was very good. It took me days to spot the surveillance. I felt my heart stop, but forced myself to keep breathing normally. I don't know what you're talking about. Alex laughed, a sound completely different from the warm chuckles I'd fallen in love with. This laugh was cold, calculating, predatory. Margaret, please, don't insult my intelligence. Your performance tonight has been admirable, but your son's been watching me from the bar for the past 20 minutes, rather sloppy for a man trying to be discreet. I glanced toward the bar, and sure enough, there was Ryan, trying to look casual while obviously monitoring our table. Detective Santos had insisted on backup, but apparently our backup was about as subtle as a neon sign. Very well, I said, sitting back in my chair. Anthony Brewster, I presume? His smile became genuinely amused. There's the intelligent woman I fell in love with. Yes, that's one of my names. I have several others. Alexander Bennett was created specifically for you, Margaret. I researched you for months before our chance meeting. How flattering. Tell me, how many women have you destroyed with this routine? I kept my voice steady, though inside I was screaming. This monster had studied me like a laboratory specimen, crafted a perfect fantasy specifically designed to exploit my loneliness and vulnerability. 7 successful operations before you, he said, with the casual pride of a businessman discussing quarterly earnings. Total take of approximately $4.2 million. You would have been my retirement fund, Margaret. Your assets were perfectly positioned for my final score. The casual way he discussed ruining lives made my skin crawl. What about Dorothy Chen? Sarah Martinez? Did you feel anything when you destroyed them? For the first time, something flickered across his face. Not remorse, but annoyance. They were naive, trusting. They believed in fairy tales at ages when they should have known better. Like I did? Like you did. Though I'll admit, you proved more challenging than expected. Your family's interference was unfortunate, but not entirely unexpected. Children often become protective when they see their inheritance threatened. His arrogance was breathtaking. Even now, caught and exposed, he spoke like he was the victim of unreasonable persecution. The other women, I said, touching my necklace to signal Detective Santos. Where's their money now? Gone, untraceable, probably funding someone's very comfortable retirement in a non-extradition country. He checked his watch casually. Speaking of which, I should be going. My flight leaves in 3 hours. I don't think so, I said as Detective Santos and 2 officers appeared at our table. Anthony Brewster, you're under arrest for fraud, elder abuse, and theft by deception. He didn't resist, didn't run, didn't even seem particularly surprised. He just smiled that cold smile and looked at me with something that might have been respect. Well played, Margaret. I underestimated you. No, I replied, standing as they cuffed him. You underestimated my family. The people who actually love me, who protect me without trying to control me, who investigated you because they wanted to save me, not spend me. As they led him away, Anthony turned back one last time. You do realize this won't bring their money back? Those women are still destroyed, still broken. I've already won where it counts. Maybe, I said, but you're not going to destroy anyone else. And sometimes stopping the monster is victory enough. 6 months later, Anthony Brewster was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The offshore accounts were never recovered, but a victims fund I helped establish provided some assistance to the women he'd destroyed. Dorothy Chen moved into a nice assisted living facility. Sarah Martinez started therapy and slowly began rebuilding her life. As for me, I learned that the best revenge against someone who tried to make you feel worthless is to discover just how valuable you really are. My family didn't save me from a con artist. They helped me save myself, and at 64, I realized I'm not someone's target or victim or consolation prize. I'm Margaret Wilson, and I'm exactly enough all by myself. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.